I'm so excited to have today's guest. I've got with me Leah GiaQuinta, and this is your second appearance. Leah shared her story with us a couple weeks ago, but today we're going to talk about one of life's most just tough, transformative transitions, and that is the transition of divorce. Leah is a passionate divorce transition coach and founder of Leah GiaQuinta Coaching, with a specialized focus on empowering women during the often tumultuous experience of divorce. Through personalized plans and unwavering support, she guides women as they navigate the complex challenges that accompany divorce. Leah's unique journey as a licensed physical therapist and former NFL cheerleader equips her with the skills to study, strengthen, and cheer on her clients, ensuring they feel supported every step of the way. In addition to her professional pursuits, Leah is a devoted mother of 4, and she has a black lab named Chief. So, Leah, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. So tell us a little bit about your work as a divorce transition coach. What is that?
So a divorce coach is basically a niche form of coaching under the broader umbrella of what coaching is. And so it might be helpful just to explain what coaching is, which is essentially helping a client sort out all of their goals and where they want to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now.
Yeah. You know, I love the oldest definition of the word coach, which stagecoach came from that. And it's taking a person from literally from where they are to where they want to go.
I love
And you think about like the old stage coaches, like a coach was a train car, I think used to be, or hey, we ride coach on an airplane. Right? Because we're going from point A to point B.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
I love that.
I do too.
and then I also think of Coach and Cinderella. So a Cinderella story.
Absolutely.
Right?
A Cinderella. Oh, I love that too.
Right. Well, I thought you would with your background in performing arts and
of course.
Yes, but me too. And so, you know, if you're a sports enthusiast, you know, if you want to hire a coach to run a marathon with a PR, then you hire someone likely who has had experience in that, you know, that sport, running or whatever it is for the sake of the metaphor, and then create action steps to get them to that point every step of the way. So in my work as a divorce coach, I have clients who find me in the very beginning stages of divorce. And, you know, and so I have one coaching package that, you know, people come and work with me, and it's just divorce contemplation. You know, divorce is on the table. I want to make sure that if I head in this direction, that I am pursuing this with clarity and confidence and groundedness, because this is a really big decision, and I want to make sure that I'm assigning an appropriate amount of weight to the decision that I'm making. And then I have some clients find me in the transition phase of divorce. They've hired an attorney. The divorce process is already in motion. And what I do is I help my clients with all of the non-legal aspects of their divorce journey. There's a stress index scale out there, and it ranks all of the different life transitions from a scale of like 1 to 100 on what are the most stressful transitions that a person can go through in their life. And divorce and loss of a spouse are neck and neck for 1 and 2. And so even the most successful people, whether in their job or anything, you know, that are able to manage their life, when you are trying to manage your life under that amount of stress, it is really hard to navigate that alone. And so some of what I do is really just helping them cognitive functioning, you know, because how do I juggle? Divorce does require a lot of work. Emotional work and logistical work.
Right.
And so how do I juggle this huge life transition of going through the divorce while managing my kids' schedules, while managing my household, while selling a house, while, all of these
Right.
things. And so I can come in and help organize that mountain of a to-do list and break that down into step-by-step action steps to make it feel a little less overwhelming. And then finally, some people find me after their divorce and they said, okay, it's all done. That part of my life transition is over, but now I'm looking ahead at
Yeah.
a new chapter and I'm just overwhelmed by the blank page. I'm overwhelmed. I want my life to look different than it did. And how can I intentionally design my next chapter of my life in a way that feels aligned with this new person that I am post all of this transition?
Yeah. It's such valuable and important work that people don't feel alone in it. So I know that you are an Enneagram fan, and that's one of the reasons why you and I are connected so well. And you are an Enneagram 2.
I am an Enneagram 2.
Yes. So how do you see the Enneagram show up with your clients, whether or not they're Enneagram informed or not? It's such I feel like once you understand it, it's hard not to kind of see the patterns. So do you have, what do you see out there?
I see it show up in the various obstacles that people come to me in their coaching work.
Yeah.
So for example, if my client, it's sometimes easiest for me to coach Enneagram 2s because that's what I lived and experienced. But if I were, for example, the Enneagram 2 is the helper, right? And often, and what I learned in my own experience, it is really hard to ask and receive help from other people. And so often the work with Enneagram 2s who come to me in the middle of the divorce is, what does your support network look like?
Yeah.
And what are who and what are you resisting that could be helpful for you on your team? What I love about the coaching piece is by the time someone has found me, that they've already taken that first step and in deciding that they're worthy of receiving the help of a coach.
Yes. Oh, because that is a big first step for so many people.
And it's so funny. I've had a lot of clients who purchase a coaching package and we haven't started coaching yet. And already our first session was, oh my gosh, I've already done all of these things.
Yeah.
And without having even started coaching. But I think just the act of saying I am worthy of receiving additional help from a coach all of a sudden puts a cascade of events in line that sets that person up for success and support. Yeah. So that's one example. Gosh, I have a 3-wing and a 1-wing that are pretty equal. And so, coaching a 3, those clients are really fun because they can tackle a to-do list like no other.
Totally.
We give a 3 an action item list, and they'll sometimes reach out the next day. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
What next?
Yeah. Give me an A+.
Yeah. Give me an A+. And I see that and I feel that because I too very much get some dopamine hits off of success and off of, making it look tidy, making it look pretty. So, and in some of those cases, the challenge is sitting in the messiness of the divorce.
Sitting with the feelings.
Recognizing that, your image has changed and it's still lovely, and redefining what success looks like.
Yes, such an important tool for a 3.
Right. And recognizing that the marriage wasn't the top of the summit. And redefining what is the top of your summit. What is that flag on the very top, and is there a top really?
Yeah. Exactly.
But how does this, how does this experience, how can you categorize this as an experience that you're learning and growing into the best version of yourself versus this experience that failed or that you're associating with a failure?
Right. Yeah. I think that would be, I mean, I could we could go down the list of like the numbers and go, man, what they're avoiding is probably the thing that's a big obstacle for them. So, a 1 is avoiding personal fault and blame all the time. And so to face divorce, there's whether or not, it doesn't really matter who's at fault in this example, because you're going to feel a personal fault and blame, and we're going to want to fight, back against that. And
my one wing sees and feels that with every ounce of that wing over here.
Over that wing. Yeah. And then like you said with the 2, I mean, what the 2 wants to avoid is being needy and asking for help. And so, I mean, you've hit on that. And so I love that you're saying with many of your coachees, you're saying like, hey, what does your help network look like? And it's okay to build one. Like build a team, because this is not a solo sport.
As far as my coaching practice too, just knowing that different challenges are going to look different for different clients,
Totally. Yes.
You have a client who's an Enneagram 9 and who is always working to make harmony.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that work looks like leaning into conflict, leaning into that resistance. And so being able to recognize that with people individually with their stories, every story is different.
Yeah.
All of my clients' story, there are threads that, we all share in common, that connect us all. But I think it's really important to really recognize each client for the unique person that they are and the unique story that they hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about the 9s and thinking like, wow, if you've got a 9 who has used every ounce of their bravery and courage to speak up and out against a marriage that wasn't good, just to celebrate that. It's like, we say if a 9 tells you where they want to go to lunch, you should be like, oh, we are going there for lunch because we are going to listen to her, listen to her voice. So like if you magnify that time, this huge decision of divorce, I just can see how that would be so tough. So if an 8 is avoiding vulnerability, what does that look like in your experience?
In my experience, my clients who are 8s who are going through divorce, sometimes their biggest struggle is reframing the relationship that they're in, that it's not their responsibility to save the other person that they're in. So there are some codependent undertones with that, and recognizing that oh my gosh, if I saw my partner as a victim and that I was helping them, like sticking up for the underdog, like how can I do this but also continue to stick up for the protector, the underdog. That's sometimes in the clients that I see, working through that guilt. Of I know this relationship isn't the best for me, or and of course it's not a partnership if somebody is, being the protector solely of the other person. But what would it look like if you were your own protector?
So good.
And taking care of yourself. And then that's usually the question that those clients stop in their tracks and think, that's a thought that has not, that I need to practice.
What if you were protecting you and not just the family? Because they could even be protecting the family unit. Oh my goodness.
So it does, in all shapes and forms, a big life change like divorce exposes all of the different parts of ourselves. And, you mentioned the term gift in our last conversation, and I love poetry. We talk about, of all of my teachers and learning, all of that there is to learn, and there's always more. But I do look towards poets as some of my favorite teachers, and one of my favorite teachers is Mary Oliver. One of my favorite poets is Mary Oliver, and she said, "Someone once handed me a box full of darkness, and it wasn't until years later that I realized that too was a gift."
Yeah, that's deep.
It's deep, and I, darkness is one way to describe, the things that get revealed to us in big life earthquakes or somersaults or whatever,
Right.
whatever way we want to describe those. But at the end of it, if you can hold that parts with tenderness, you can recognize the gifts in all
the
of
darkness.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a practice that we do in the intermission cohort called Applauding Act 1. And it's this idea of looking at the highs, the lows, the good, the pain, the joy, and just saying, how was it all a gift?
All of it.
All of it. And, being from a faith perspective, I'm reminded that we're always in a redemption story.
Always.
Always. But it's just at times and points, and especially in the process of divorce or the recovery from divorce. I mean, sometimes it's just so hard to see it, but it doesn't mean it's not. It doesn't mean it's not the meta story that's happening,
Right.
holistically around you.
Right.
But yeah, that idea is so profound.
Well, and you're right. It's so universal. And, my faith foundation is in Catholicism. And I bring that up because, we kind of talked about that one
Wanting to do it right.
The good girl.
The good girl.
What's the good wife? And Catholicism, they hold the Catholicism, the practice of Catholicism holds marriage as a sacrament.
Right. And
so if that breaks, if that falls apart, then what does that mean? Especially if you're a one, and that you are relying on all of these structures and these rules. And then all of a sudden your life isn't in alignment of those structures and the rules, and that all falls apart.
Oh, it just breaks my heart to even think of it, actually.
It's a shattering. It's a shattering. But the challenge is, and like to your point, and I've actually, in one of my most surprising experiences in this journey is how much it's open conversations within the Catholic Church, and how open several of my friends who are priests and rabbis and all sorts of things, and is the conversation. And I tell some of my favorite priests this all the time. There is no greater Catholic experience than the experience of divorce. And like you said, there's an order, there's a disorder, and there's a reorder. There's life, there's death, and then there's rebirth. And that is the basic calendar of everything.
Yes, that's right.
So I said, if anyone gets it, it's ask a divorced person. They've experienced it. So yeah. So anyway,
I have goosebumps everywhere.
But that
You're
has
so
been
right.
part of my experience is, what is the right thing to do, as far as that one wing, and how long do you hold on to a marriage or a relationship that doesn't work or that doesn't serve you just because it's what the rules say,
right?
And living in that gray area, living in that in between versus that black and white, that's a huge transformation. And if you can work through that obstacle. I was having a conversation with someone who said, so many people struggle with their own alignment with their spiritual health, because they're operating on a set of rules that, their education with that stopped in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
That's
so true.
So no wonder why those
You're
set of rules
operating-
don't support you anymore in your midlife.
Yeah.
Like anything else, it requires continuing education. And I think,
And
again,
growth.
going back to all of the books that I decided to read during this transition of my life, like those rules don't exist anymore. Let me get my hands on as many books as I can to help make sense of this. What is going on?
What is going on here?
Yeah.
It's always bigger than what we can actually see in right in front of us. It's good to have that, like, take that step back and look at the bigger perspective. Okay, well, my producer is reminding me that we've talked about several of the numbers, but not all of them. And so we don't want to leave anyone, we don't want to leave anyone out here on the Enneagram podcast. So let's just talk about what 4, 5, 6, and 7 are avoiding and how that might impact the process of this transition. So the 4 is avoiding being ordinary. And so I can see that maybe the 4 would consider divorce like, no, I'm not going to be that statistic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. How can I do this in a way that's not status quo? And
yeah. And I want to say to that 4 out there, it's like, you're still you.
Yes.
You can go through something that feels a status quo. I guess that's a great word for it.
Generic,
Generic.
Another number.
It doesn't take the you out of it. You are adding your creativity and your spirit to what's happening.
Right. And I think it's almost ironic because we kind of talk about, if you're a 1 or a 2, it's, divorce can't, by nature, can be so isolating, and you can get into thought patterns and traps of, and I certainly felt like this, and anybody who's gone through grief can feel alone on the island, as if you're the only one in the world who's ever gone through a divorce. And I had to almost pinch myself sometimes and think, oh, this is crazy. Like, I am not the first person to go through a divorce. I'm not going to be the last person who goes through a divorce. So it's almost the opposite way of thinking versus, perhaps a 4 doesn't want to go through a divorce because they see it as, something that,
it's too normal.
Is too normalized or generic or anything like that, which is almost the opposite mindset of anybody else who would think.
So fascinating. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the 5 is avoiding being a burden. And also I can't help but imagine that for the 5, because of all the work that you mentioned it takes to divorce is a lot of work, logistically, emotionally, time, money. And so with that very limited reservoir of energy, I can imagine that a 5 would just immediately feel like, I don't have capacity. I don't have energy for this. I don't think I could survive this. So I could especially see how coaching would be a benefit there. But that energy drain has got to be just even more huge for the
coaching those clients
to
take lots of breaks, and then also keeping an eye on where they are directing or placing their energy. I do have some clients that get really thick in the weeds of the details and the data points. And the information. And, there are some times where I stop and pause and say, all of that information that you're collecting, or the evidence that you're collecting, is for what purpose? And, sometimes people will say, oh, well, I think my attorney will need all of that. To which I say, have you asked your attorney? And so sometimes allocating that energy to your reserves and what's actually important is really helpful for people who can tend to go off the rails and then
go down into the
rabbit holes.
Oh, I'm sure that happens for sure. So the 6, just anxious, fear. Am I safe?
Fear.
Worst case, imagining the worst possible outcomes.
Yeah.
So just the fear and the anxiety for the 6. And
Yeah.
so,
Fight, flight, freeze.
those
Are often the freezers. I think of Hunger Game, or perhaps they run because they're afraid, whatever is driving that. But I think of Hunger Games and the cornucopia, and I was a freezer. I froze. I was afraid to move. And so I always, I characterized myself as PETA, like I'll be in the mud. Maybe you'll see my eyeballs, but I'm going to stay right here. And then luckily I surrounded myself with enough people who grabbed my hand and said, come on, let's go. Let's go.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the 6 who's going to struggle with anxiety and overthinking, having that partner would just be huge. Partner of somebody who's been there, who's done it, who's walked the road.
And someone to remind them to take radical care of themselves. The cortisol levels are high no matter who you are going through a divorce. So what do you need to allow yourself to go from that fear, constant stress state and to get into a normal resting state again? Do you have a good therapist? Are you talking to your doctor? What do you need to feel safe and secure? And let's put that life jacket on you.
Yeah. I remember you told me once that one of the first things you do is build the safety cocoon for the client. And you say, these are the things we're going to do first because I need you to feel safe.
Yes.
Just speak to that just really briefly here, because I thought that was really, really cool and smart.
Yeah. Well, where your metaphor is, the intermission in the Act 1 and the Act 2, the metaphor that kept coming to me in designing a lot of my coaching programs was the butterfly, because there's the radical transformation that happens in people's journey from the caterpillar and the cocoon and then the butterfly. And and I think that it is really important when you are in the storm. I mean, they say that cocoons can withstand the craziest storms if you've ever looked those up. And so, helping people to surround themselves with a network and a security blanket of me as their coach as one person, but you get to ask, you get to ask for it all, so let's find an attorney to help support you. And so what your rights are. Let's find a financial advisor to help empower you with your finances. Let's find a therapist to help support your mental health. Do you have health insurance, and do you have a doctor to be able to check in? I mean, let's face it, so many of my clients are in perimenopause. Like, how are your hormones and how is your internal system supporting you through this big life change?
Right.
So all of the things.
All of it, just building that. So then finally the 7, which is going to avoid pain.
Right. And so from 6 to 7, right? Oftentimes the 7 clients are the flight risks.
Yeah. They're the flight risks. They're like, this is too hard. I'm going to, yeah. So what do you see there? Bounce.
So 7s, my clients who are 7s, typically our work is grounding.
Grounding. Yep. 2 feet on the ground.
Grounding. What does that look for you? How do you ground down and constantly find your anchor, your compass, your inner north?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We are linking all of your socials, website, and we are linking all of your socials and website, and a beautiful article that you wrote for Indie Maven. What was the title? What I Want Every Woman to Know?
I'm a divorce coach. Here's what I want every woman to know. And it's a bullet point of some of my top pieces of advice of anyone who's going through a divorce. Obviously, each person is different, and each piece of advice might hit different, but those are
They're very powerful. I read them and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to send this to I'm going to send it to several people. So I want to link that in the show notes. It's just anything that people would need to find you. But thank you so much for being here today, Leah.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thanks.